Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. As people filter in. I like your background, Raymond.
Thank you. It's actually goes all the way around the room with too many toys.
I have a shelf here. I wish I could show you. I know a lot of my people are still on vacation, so I expect that has happened as well elsewhere. But we'll get started in earnest. We'll give it another minute. All right, I guess we'll just go with some intros. So our last meeting was on the 8th of December, so we decided to forego the end of December meeting by popular demand and convened today. But like I said, as expected, turnout will be impacted because I know a lot of people were switching off holidays and things like that to take the first of the year off. We'll see how this filters in. Going back there's some, introduction new attendees. I know, thankfully, we had Dan from Adobe introduce himself on the mailing list. Dan, did you want to take a minute or two to self-introduce here and to maybe say what you plan to be doing? I saw some activity on GitHub recently.
Yeah, sure. So hi, everybody. Dan McQueenie, like Matt said, from Adobe. Yeah, I'm basically just brand new to OpenWhisk. I've dabbled with it mostly as a user previously, as a small proof of concept that I built internally for some other service that I no longer work on. And yeah, I think out of the gate, I'll probably end up, working on some of the stuff that Tyson is up to as well around logging and some of the Mesos integration, perhaps if he needs help there. Yeah, the some of the GitHub stuff I worked on I was kind of just sort of stumbling around in the dark, trying to build all the pieces and make all the pieces work, and just found some small things that were easy to fix for somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, for the most part. So hopefully it didn't cause too much noise, or hopefully the PRs are at least worthwhile. Yeah, so that's it for me. I mean, we can talk about one of the PRs later too, if we'd like. I don't know all the people that are involved in all the disparate little elements, so I'm not sure if we have consensus for that.
Sure. I mean, is it the one on the Go stuff? The Go
Yeah. The CLI PR that one has already been pulled in, which was just a teeny tiny fix, but the other one is a larger. What direction should we go in with tooling? So that might be a better discussion to have.
Yeah, sure. We have 5 major areas that we talk about, so we can talk about that when it comes time to tooling and utilities and things like that, I guess.
Perfect.
Cool. So I just wanted to make note that that Felix Meshberger has been our mentor since the beginning, and he's become occupied with other endeavors, and he's basically nominated Bertrand Delacrutaz to, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, to be his replacement mentor, who's actually, Bertrand's been very active anyways on our projects since the beginning, and he's very active in Apache in general as a director. So Bertrand is eager to help us towards graduation of the project and seeing through all the obstacle courses and things. So I just want to make note of that. Anybody else that I missed? I see a B on the attendee list, and I also see someone they went by. They guess they came and left. Anybody else on the call? Who is B on the call? I'm just curious.
That's Billy. That's Billy.
Oh, hi, Billy.
Hey
Okay.
there.
All right. We know who Billy is. All right. Thanks. With that, we just basically have status different areas. Again, being the holidays, I think that everything would look quiet looking at the grass across the repos on GitHub. Maybe I'll jog some people's memories. So Incubator OpenWhisk, these are things, this is the merge list, I guess, over the last few weeks. Anything jump out, anybody that is going on in main OpenWhisk now, or planned, or twinkle in somebody's eye that they're working on something that will hit the dev list or something? Anybody? I didn't see anything that really jumped out at me too much. Yeah, same thing. So for Kube Mesos, Dave, I know you're here. Did you want to give any updates on any happenings in that realm of the woods? Dave, you there still?
Sorry, I had to find the mute button. Yeah, I mean, we've been making some progress. Got a couple PRs outstanding to get API Gateway working, and do some restructuring, and I'm just going to continue pushing along with that. And one of the goals for the next few weeks is to try to get all the test suite running against Kubernetes and see what we're missing.
Excellent. Let's see, is anybody on from API Gateway. I don't see anybody. I know I saw some PRs there this morning around Cassandra. So, but if no one's here to comment, then I'll leave that to work its way through the system later. Now we're down to catalog, packagings, samples, tools. So Dan, if you wanted to talk about your GoDep stuff, that's good time now.
Yeah. So as I sort of went through on the list as well, there is still some flux in the Go dependency management tool space. Anyway, there's still a myriad of tools that we could probably select to move forward with. Seems the most sensible, however, to go with the tool that's actually endorsed by the team also building the language, given that they also have opinions about other tools. So like they have Go format and things like that. So they kind of already package some of those things in with the main language itself. So it stands to reason that given the push from the community to have a tool that does this, that they would continue moving forward with GoDep. Now, there is an open process in the Go community, just like there is in Apache, to kind of get these things done. So there is still the possibility that dep will go nowhere and it'll just rot on the vine, as I said in the email. So we could leave it just the way it is. I just was, like I said, wandering around through the repositories and trying to do tiny bits of good where I could. And there is an argument here that this is not necessarily where we want to go to, and there's no point in moving until GoDep becomes a major part of the Go tool chain, an actual part of the Go tool chain, as opposed to kind of this ancillary project as it is right now. It was a small amount of work that I figured I would just go ahead and try and do. So in the PR, you can see what changes. There isn't a lot. The only other thing I kind of did, if memory serves, I'd have to go back look at the PR, is I moved some of the tests around so they're like a little bit more sort of the way Go organizes code, which is kind of sticking the test immediately adjacent to the file itself as opposed to off in its own directory. I almost hesitated even doing that because I didn't want to pollute one PR with other stuff, but I figured I was there moving a bunch of other stuff around anyway, so why not go ahead and do that. So what I haven't done is sorted out some of the Travis build, because if we don't want to do this, I didn't really want to do the work of trying to figure out why Travis wasn't working. So if this is something we're interested in moving forward with, I'm happy to shepherd it all the way in and work with whoever has committer rights to get all this wired up again correctly. If not, I'm okay with just abandoning it as well. Like I said, I'm simply just learning my way around, and this was one of the ways of doing
that. Okay, thanks, Dan. And so I'll assume that somebody will respond to your PRs since they're relatively new. So,
great, thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, a quick comment on that one.
Sure.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Carl.
Welcome to the community. Appreciate your work, and I'm happy to see people with Golang knowledge. It looks like the user community actually also the numbers are JavaScript centric. I guess that's a easy language for people to use serverless, but to build serverless, Kubernetes, OpenWhisk, Scala, and Go are kind of like the two I would say major component languages. So I'm very happy to see someone with Go skills in the community and with some background. Hey, it's more than that I had when we started a year ago. So in terms of the dependency management, I would say I vote for leaving it like it is right now. It's not hurting. If, like you said, the Go community, and we have some other people with strong, productivity arguments that it's a way to change it, I would say go and change it, because the people that are contributing are the ones that are going to set like what they're going to work day to day, right? At the same time, even for other people, easy to adopt new folks. So that's one argument. The other one, the tests, yes, please, if you can split that in a different repo and then restructure the unit tests. We don't have a lot of unit tests in the CLI. We started some unit tests in the library. So the library is the one that needs a little bit more love than the CLI. So we're like doing everything through integration tests through Scala. But the goal when we started this split was to have, you know, Go code with Go test in terms of unit tests of methods, of structures and methods. So anything that helps around that line on restructuring or adding unit tests or a framework or a pattern or documentation or anything that helps the group is helpful. But I think the library holds a lot of information, a lot of the core of functionality of the client side. So that's my short input. We can keep discussing in the mailing list and Slack.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, if you move forward, I'd love to see what your solution is, because I know we have some other tooling besides CLI that we use GoDeps, and if there's a better way or a cleaner way to do it, I'd be curious in that as well. Anything else around packages, samples, tooling? I just wanted to mention that for Whisk deploy that we've been doing an internationalization cleanup. So we use an IQ and library, much like the CLI has right now. And I'm just going through all of our files and making sure all of our strings are in the translation files and that we have proper IDs for everything. So in addition, working on improving interpolation for the tool. So if you use Whisk deploy, use the package manifest, a YAML file, that we can actually interpolate names from environment variables for all entities, packages, rules, triggers, etc. So basically anything can be replaced from pulling from environment variables. So that's pretty cool. So that's moving towards automation. So we can actually do some automated deployment of all of our samples and packages eventually. That's all I really had. I think that I wanted Vincent to, I think the big push from my perspective, and you know, Carlos, this is on his mind constantly. I know he presented this a couple months ago. You know, Doyle added a release management page on our Apache because it's about graduation, and it's all focused around release management for the most part. So I know, Vincent, are you on? I think that you had some slides that you wanted to show. I think the goal is that what's in slide format here, that these are things that Vincent is planning to derive, I believe, during the next couple months. So we want to use the wiki to collaborate, capture his ideas, merge them with what Doya has put on there, and then take comments on the wiki. And what I want to see is, I know Carlos created the incubator release, OpenWhisk release repo. We plan to follow other projects like the Cordova Coho, have a separate repository that we use to document the release process and create tooling and the scripts needed to kick off the release across the multiple repos that should be included in our release. Version, tag, SHA, all that stuff. So that's the intent. So Vincent, do you want to show your slides? You still there?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to share my app. Okay. So can folks see it? See the slides?
Yep.
Already. I'm going to slides. Yep. Okay, so after some discussion with Matt and some of my teammates, and we really started to launch the initiative to automate our management for OpenWhisk releases. And yeah, based on the Apache, since we were kind of in the Apache project, we were still in the incubating stage, and we're going to graduate, so we're going to release our project in a more healthy and sustainable way. So this is the kind of approach we need to pursue. And based on the Apache rules, Apache policies, this is kind of major steps that we need to follow in order to make our release success. Like we need to send off a kind of release approval to our public mailing list, and we need to have some artifacts published, including the source code, including some binary compiled packages with correct release signings. And we need to make sure that all of them contains a license file, notice file, and each source code file has a license header, have the correct license header. And finally, last but not least, we have to upload all of the artifacts or correct subdirectory in the Apache channel. And here are all the bulletin list about over here based on the reference link I put at the bottom. And so for the first step, this is just kind of release approval that we need to reach, get a consensus from our OpenWhisk community. So this step perhaps can be a manual step. Either a manager, either a release manager, or a maintainer can send out this kind of release notes to the public mailing list, ask for more votes, and open for for a few days, asking for more consensus and for more votes to decide whether we're going to push a release or not. So here is some two of the examples, and there is another example of some mail about how it looks like. And next, I think we'll go to some substantial work items that we can list for this kind of potential work. And the current status is that we have created a new repo called Incubator OpenWhisk Release. And so you can find the link over here. Currently, there is only one descriptive file inside, so this repo is targeted to be our tool to manage OpenWhisk releases. And since our OpenWhisk is not a single repo, it doesn't contain a single repo. It's more like a project set. We have our core repo, we have our CLI repos, we have our runtime repos, API gateway packages, catalog, etc., or even any other services we can add it into this kind of repo. So each release may contains different, let's say different directories, different subdirectories, but that may vary from release to release. And we would like to create those kind of structures and make it reflected in our release repo. So how do we manage the relationship between our subdirectory and the original repos? Well, one approach that we can think of is to use Git submodule, so that we can create the links between the tag and the hash, and we don't have to maintain like the source code for a second time over here. So this is one approach, but definitely there could be other options. And our one directory can be associated with one release with the Git submodule links. And in order to make like more automatically, so we definitely need to, if this is an approach we would like to go with, and we definitely need to develop some script to generate this kind of structure for a certain release in order to publish our further artifacts. Next, before we release anything, we have to make sure we have the correct licenses, and we offer the user the correct installation script. So to generate those kind of headers, generate those kind of license, we can make it we can do it in an automated way. And to verify the headers, to check whether it's compliant with Apache policies, we can do this. Can be done by, for example, RATs. And things OpenWhisk is a container service-based deployment. So Vagrant can be the option that we deploy OpenWhisk on top of a clean environment. So the Vagrant file is definitely one approach, one way for us to offer the user regarding the installations. How to how do we verify our release? It has, let's say, it has no bugs, no major issues. We can use like Jenkins pipeline to do that, and we can write some like Jenkins script to make sure Jenkins job able to download, build, and verify OpenWhisk before we publish anything, before we release anything. And after that, we also need some automatic way to, let's say, zip or generate the source packages or the compiled packages. And after that is done, we got it signed by our release manager or maintainers and upload those kind of artifacts, well-packaged artifacts to the project subdirectory in Apaches. So this is all the major steps we have to go through before we make it land, make it a release success. So in order to make, let's say, all of them automatically, so the repo we created called incubator OpenWhisk. This is the one that we're going to manage our release. So this is so generally what has been in my mind and what I'm planning to do in the next couple of months.
Quick question on my side.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on creating Git releases from individual repositories as well?
Yes. This is kind of a central management that we definitely need to create that, let's say, one major release for each repos.
Yeah, so Marcos, are you talking about once we cut and decide and vote that this set of repos with corresponding long hash are veto, right? They're good to go, and we name it. This is 100 dash incubating because we have to have the dash incubating for now. We go across all the repos and we tag that hash with 100 dash incubating, so it's easy to find, I guess, right? But during the voting and the hashing and the creating, I think it's better to use the hash because it's not settled, right? There might be mistakes and we have to go back. So once it's vote, release, distribute, then we can go back and like put a pin, right, saying this hash corresponds to this release. That's what you're relating to, or you're talking about kind of like the thing that we're doing with the CLI, like a binary on the GitHub release page type of thing.
I think you answered, Carlos. Thank you. Yeah, and yeah, it makes sense. And
Yeah.
probably if we release something on any subrepo, ideally, if we could cross-link, if somebody ends up there, we can say the complete release is in this repo. But if we can automate it, if not, we will just tag it and leave it as is.
So I think the question I have is like, is there some rule about do we have to release everything at once? So do all subrepos have to be released? Because I think the process being described here is kind of describing a Uber release of all the repos, and I've seen a lot of projects that do releases of individual repos independent of each other, and there may be a separate kind of composite release that has verified artifacts of potentially different version numbers compiled together into one kind of Uber release.
Yeah, I can see that happening. I mean, I know that Carlos just did Cordova, but I know that they qualify their repos as something core, something satellite, something follow on, or whatever. So I imagine that we'll have a sort of core repos that we build in this Uber way, as you say, but then things will build on top of that or follow that release on their own. I think that we need to at least get the core repos done. And it's all about contributions. If people have time, help with the initial stuff and build upon it and use the same tooling and processes, all the better.
Yeah, so I have strong opinions, and that's just based on experiences. It's a journey. So I said that let's go with one Uber suite. Based on my experience in Cordova, I was release manager, and we had 20 things, little things that we released at some point, and we still do. We had something called plugins, which we have 20 or 18. I guess we're down to 14. And you can imagine as a release manager releasing one of those, going through the vote process, right? Three days, vote, discuss, release, cut, and get it out. And then try to explain to the community that version plugin 1.1.0 is not Cordova. It's just a plugin which is compatible with version of Cordova 5 and 4, but not 6. And then it's all a mess in the outside world where we live, where people say, oh, Cordova got released. Like, oh, no, it wasn't Cordova. It was the plugin. So when is Cordova going out? Well, there's no such thing as Cordova. It's a suite of things. It's the CLI, it's the platform, it's the plugin, it's whatever you want. It's like Legos, like whatever you want to put together and deploy. And that created fragmentation and confusion in the community. I don't know if Raymond has opinions agreeing or disagreeing with that. But I think for now, like the same thing as Kubernetes, right? I don't know much about Kubernetes, but I think Kubernetes is like 1.9, I guess. There might be 30 utilities behind that, but what the people see is like, oh, there's a new version of Kubernetes 1.9. Let's go with it. Everything released at around this time is compatible with that. But this is the repo that I wanted to have, like a central place that people can find those answers, as you said. And in terms of releasing one component, yes, we can do it, but I would say let's do it in a way of us as the maintainers versus making it an open release publishing thing for users. So we can always cut a tag, release something in terms of what is the problem that we're trying to solve, but not release it as this is a new version of the CLI 2.1. Go out and use it, right? It's easy. It's as easy as saying, oh, there's a patch release of the OpenWhisk 1.10, and the only thing that it changed was the CLI had a bug fix, and this time has that thing fixed.
I mean, I like what Carl said. It's a journey. I mean, we have certain things we must adhere to for Apache. As long as we follow those, it's up to us to develop our own processes. So we have to figure out if there's semantics or groupings of things that are follow-on, like Kubernetes and Mesos, and do they want to work together to create a follow-on release? I mean, that's all evolutionary. I think we got to get the basics down first, get the source code published, and do the things we need to get a minimal set of things for graduation. So.
Yeah, so we could start with focus on this Uber release and refer to other repositories using Git hashes, and over time, if there's a need and we want to, we can change that a little bit to release individual repositories and change the Git hash reference to be a release reference and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt. That's the thing that it's a journey, because we have to get there. Like, what's the purpose of releasing one component? Just release the whole thing, and the one component change within that whole thing, right?
Yeah, I mean,
your invoker still is 1.0.0. Your control is 1.0.0. Oh, the CLI is 1.1.1. But the whole thing is like version 1.1.1.
Right.
One quick question I had with regards to the slide that's up right now. What is the utility of using directories for individual releases as opposed to just re-tagging that repo with that release? So then the repo just keeps moving forward as opposed to just constantly having all this stuff of many submodules all pointing to different things. Is that like an Apache requirement or something? It just seems like an odd way of doing it. That's all.
Yeah, this is more of like what fits better the scripting. So the scripts are not done yet, and these are the what you mentioned were like my two columns in my whiteboard was doing it like this in directories, or do it as one Uber directory, and then as you change a Git branch, you have a different set of directories. as we add a component to the release. Like maybe the first release doesn't have API gateway, maybe the second one has API gateway. But it's whatever fits better the script. I went with this one. I was debating on between the two, but I'd say like let's start with this one because it's clear when people open a Git repo, they will see 100.11.11, and they click a folder and then go in there and then see what is in there. And there will be a .json file, and they maybe can run a script. Versus they can go in there and then they see files and folders, and then you come next week and they see files and folders differently, and like what did they change? And then they have to go into this is a GitHub web page kind of experience, right? They have to go and click the thing and see if there's a branch, if there's a tag, and see what's there and what's not there. So it's kind of like behind the scenes from a human perspective. This is more human consumable if you want to land somewhere. But
yeah, I guess in my head it tied in sort of with what Dragos was saying. It was like, hey, why don't we, if we also use GitHub releases, then the GitHub release page would show you the specific tag in that repo that was that bundled up release. I mean, it's 6 of 1 for the most part, it seems like. So I'm fine. I'm just wondering if there's a deeper rationale. It sounds like this is like what's easiest to do for right now, and we can worry about it later, which is also fine.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that the goal for Vincent's going to try and discuss this on the wiki. So we have a page already he's going to try and, I guess, fill out. So we're going to try and bulletize all the steps we're going to take. And if we, before we start enacting them, acting upon them. So if you want to have commentary there, that's great as well. And
it's just an utility. It's an utility repo to help with the scripting with the release manager of the week, right? That he can run a few commands and start running the scripts, and then we evolve into running it from Jenkins, and we don't have to worry about it. So like you said, if we tag the repo, that will trigger Jenkins to start doing a release and cutting and all the stuff. So, but we don't have the scripts. So as we develop the scripts, it might change. But this was just a kind of a human easy way of navigating the repo.
Sure, fair enough. Cool, thanks.
But good feedback. I think those were the only 2 options on the table when we were discussing. And doability, if we can do it with sub-modules in different folders, like if that even is doable and it can, it's not a mess of doing some modules, we'll do it like that. But one thing that we didn't want to do, like at the beginning, try to do it with get some modules versus copying the whole thing for another repo and the hash, and then I didn't like that. So either get some modules or just a .json file that the script does the work locally to git clone or something.
Okay.
But I didn't want to have a second copy here of the files from the other repos. That was a strong position.
Mm-hmm.
So I skipped over, but I meant to ask Dragos and company about Mesos. I've always been curious about what your target dates are, and I know that Master has not been building for a while. You've got daily builds. I know. What are your plans for Mesos? Just trying to figure it out, because I think it would be great if somehow we could understand how Kubernetes and Mesos could both be released at the same time, not as long as we're about releases, or move together in some way. So, Dragos, do you have any?
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. This is a great question, actually. We have been working for a while with Mesosphere, which is the company behind Mesos. So we do plan to offer community and support community packages that are deployable in Mesos installations, and more specifically DCOS. What's happening is that we're trying to kick off an internal release in Adobe and then focus on the public / community versions. I'm looking at Tyson as well to keep me honest, but I think in this first few months of the year, maybe first quarter, we're looking to publish packages and installation script that developers can use like one command to deploy everything if they want into a Mesos cluster. So we're in the works.
Excellent.
Yeah. So we have, and similar to Kubernetes, we have 2 different tracks. One is the strictly deploying OpenWhisk Classic in DCOS, which is mostly a deployment exercise. And then the other one is the Mesos Container Factory. So being able to leverage Mesos for launching containers instead of the Docker CLI within the Mesos cluster. And I think, I think it was Dave had a issue created for kind of describing those two different approaches for using Kubernetes in different ways.
Excellent. I was wondering how much. It's hard to have a crystal ball and look ahead, but how close are we to that enablement? And are any big things coming our way in terms of main OpenWhisk that we need to change how we do configurations or whatnot still?
I think we're talking months, not optimistically month, and pessimistically months, multiple months. As far as configuration goes, I think the biggest changes, which are not huge, I think, are around the ideas of controller and invoker IDs. So in the same way that the invoker has evolved to have this notion of dynamic invoker ID assigned, I think we see a similar need for the controller, at least when it's running inside of Mesos, to have multiple controllers running with a more flexible ID concept. Because right now it's the integer argument, the same way invoker used to be. Other than that, nothing major configuration wise. The clustering aspect is something that we've been looking at, and I'll be revisiting here in the coming weeks, both for controller as well as for the invoker operating as a Mesos framework. It needs to behave in a clustered way. But that's kind of the extent of the configuration and kind of differences that we'd be looking at for running in Mesos.
So one last question just occurred to me, and I'll let you go and stop introspecting. But in terms of all the SPI work, is everything in place for you to use other plugins for different aspects of the architecture? And also, are you planning to create examples or documentation on how to use alternative plugins versus the ones we might have out of the box?
Yeah, so that's something that we've been struggling with, and it sounds like from talking to Marcus about the logging stuff that IBM's had some similar struggles with how to deal with that. And so the short answer is that the for SPI implementations that are inside the master code base, everything is very simple right now. And any SPI that's outside the master code base, there is not really anything good for making those builds happen. So one thing that we'll be looking at, for example, for the release process is getting Java jar artifacts built as part of the release process to make some of that easier. And then the other aspects are, basically providing documentation around, like, here's a convention for building images that has custom jars added to your image. But we haven't gotten so far as, kind of stabilizing that process. We have a little bit of a hack happening right now to produce images, and I'd be looking for feedback from how things are getting done with the logging situation at IBM, and make sure that we come up with something that's that's usable for everybody.
Excellent. Thanks. That's all I intended to ask. So we're 43 minutes into the call. So this is about the time where I ask for volunteers for the next host. Would anybody be brave enough to step up to host in 2 weeks' time, which would be the 17th if I do my math correctly from today? So
I can do it, Matt, unless somebody else wants it.
I think the first person that speaks is it. So,
I think that's a record for volunteer searching.
yes, thank you, Dragos. All right, any closing thoughts, comments before we adjourn? All right, thanks everybody. Happy New Year, Del, and nice hat, Dragos. We should note that. So, thanks.
It was Carlos that inspired me actually initially.
I know, I couldn't. I'll just say that I bought a green screen. I plan to use it at some point in the future. So, okay. Take care, guys.
Take care.
Wow.
Thanks.
Great.
Bye.